Hey you guys, so a common question I get asked is what is the perfect diet? Should I be vegan? Should I be vegetarian? Should I be ketogenic? Should I do paleo? Should I just eat everything in moderation? Like what should I be eating, Dr. Peoples? And the misconception is that there is a perfect diet that fits everyone. So the reality is that all of our bodies are different. We process nutrients differently, and what may be good for you may not be right for the next person. And so really figuring out what foods work best with your body is really important. But with that being said, I can give you a couple of pointers on how to optimize your diet, regardless of if you fall into one of these food trends or not. And if your food trend does not include these basic things, then you're probably missing the major important components of a healthy diet. So, the number one thing is focusing on vegetables. Period, point blank. I don't care what type of diet you're eating, whether if you're doing ketogenic and you're eating nothing but meat and vegetables, the vegetable part of that is the most important part. And the reason is that we need the nutrients from vegetables to fuel our body. Not for the calories, for the actual nutrients, the magnesium, the potassium, the zinc, the iron, all of those nutrients that are required for our bodies to function, we are found in vegetables. So that's the major component, number one. So number two on my list is avoiding processed foods, right? So processed foods are all those foods that you find in the grocery store that are in packages that have a long ingredient list, usually with names of ingredients that you could not find in a typical kitchen, right? So you want to think about your foods as being in the most pure or whole form. That's where this idea of whole foods comes from, this idea of eating foods in their most natural state. So the example I always give is an apple is a whole food. A Pop Tart is not, right? There are tons of ingredients in Pop Tarts that have nothing to do with apples, right? Now, if you were to make a apple tart in your kitchen, there would be specific ingredients that you might need: flour, sugar, apples, right? And you could keep those ingredients to a minimum. If you go to the grocery store and look at what's in a Pop Tart, there are tons of ingredients in there that you could not use or could not find to make your own version of that at home without all those extra ingredients. So you want to try to stick to more whole foods, use eating foods in their most natural state, and avoiding a lot of those extra ingredients that are found in processed foods. All right, so the third thing is going to be, if you're going to be eating meat, you want to eat the highest quality meat that you can possibly find, and you don't really probably need as much meat as you think you do. So, tip number one was eat mostly vegetables or focus on vegetables. So, even if you have meat, the majority of your meal should still be vegetables. It shouldn't be like necessarily the meat. So, I prefer to focus on the quality of the meat, poultry, fish, whatever you want to fill in there, animal protein, than the quantity. So buy the grass-fed beef, but just eat less of it. Buy the free-range eggs or chickens, but you don't need as many, right? So really focus on the quality of your animal protein over the quantity. And then that goes for plant protein too. So a lot of the plant proteins, like your impossible meats and things of that nature, those are highly processed foods. So if you go back to tip number two, avoid processed foods, you really want to stay away from a lot of these processed plant-based proteins. But there are some cleaner versions if you are not sensitive to soy. Thinking about an organic non-GMO tofu might work, or tempeh, but then also things like beans, and lentils and things of that nature, nuts and seeds. So the next thing that I would say is important for you to know what your food sensitivities are. So understanding that a lot of us may respond to certain foods that are specific to us, right? So you might have heard people being dairy free or gluten free or soy free or nut free. Now, some of these people might actually have an actual allergy, and that is different than a food sensitivity. So obviously, if you have an allergy, you're going to keep that food out of your diet. There's nobody who's going to tell you to start eating peanuts if you have a peanut allergy. But what I'm talking about is a food sensitivity. This basically means that your body is sensitized to a specific food, and it causes inflammation in your body and then results in symptoms. That symptom can be fatigue, brain fog. It can be inflammation leading to a chronic illness like joint pain or Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, or it could be messing with your thyroid. So these foods can cause inflammation, can cause leaky gut, and lead to symptoms or diseases. So figuring out your food sensitivities is really important. I usually do not recommend doing that by like a food sensitivity test. That's not as sensitive or as specific. The ideal way of identifying your food sensitivities is an elimination diet, where you remove these foods out of your diet for a significant amount of time, reintroduce them back in to find out if you have a reaction. If you're interested in learning more about that process, there's probably a video on my YouTube page talking or more detail about it. So anyway, I don't know how many things I gave you there. I think there were 4. One was eat more vegetables. 2 was stay away from processed food. 3 was think about protein quality. That doesn't matter if it's protein or meat, or animal protein or plant-based protein. And then the last one is know your food sensitivities. There are a couple of other things, but I think if you were to apply that rule to whatever diet you're eating, it's a great place to start.